Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento. And in today's episode, we've got somebody who I've been so excited to chat with. He is just on the other side of Florida from me. But the most important thing about today's guest is that I genuinely feel like he embodies the entrepreneurial spirit in so many different ways that you're going to see from his own backstory. You're going to see the way he thinks about life and business. All of this is so intertwined, and I'm so excited to tell you about today's guest. His name is Max Martinez. He's an entrepreneur, activist, producer, strategist, athlete, and creator from Miami, Florida. After breaking Michael Vick's Nike Spark Combine record as a 16-year-old, he was recruited to play football at Cornell University, where he played cornerback, running back, and kick returner for 4 seasons. But he's not just an athlete. He started and sold his first company, a pickup and delivery laundry service, and discovered his passion for entrepreneurship and risks, which you're going to see has really followed him through his entire life up to this point. After graduating with his bachelor's degree in government from Cornell's College of Arts and Sciences in 2013, Max moved to San Francisco, where he co-founded, this is so cool, I love this part of his story, a financial literacy startup called Frugal, and spearheaded a record-breaking crowdfunding campaign through Indiegogo, raising $78,000 in just 30 days to become the first financial literacy startup to crowdfund online successfully, and later became 2014's most promising fintech startup at Bank Innovation's Demovation Challenge in Seattle. There's so many more things I could tell you about Max's story. He has been involved in the design of professional soccer teams and jerseys. He has run for mayor of Miami and finished as the runner-up back in 2021. He has such an incredible story. I'm so excited about this. I don't even know where we're going to go today, but it's going to be all the good stuff that pertains to every single one of us. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Max Martinez. All right, Max, I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a ton for having me. I've been looking forward to it for a long time.
Heck yeah, likewise. And obviously you heard my intro. I don't even know how to sum up all the incredible projects that you're a part of. But to me, the big thing is that you're a mover and a shaker. When you think of something, you execute on it. Fill in those gaps for listeners who are thinking, Max, how do all these pieces tie in together? Take them beyond the bio. Who is Max?
Well, long story short, I'm a person who thrives on challenges, and I'm unafraid to take risks in pursuit of my goals. I value hard work and dedication above everything, and I'm always exploring new opportunities to learn and grow as an entrepreneur, activist, producer, creator. Whether I'm starting a new business, producing an NFL show, or running for office, I approach everything with a mindset to turn impossible situations into possible outcomes. Innovation and progress require someone who's always willing to push boundaries. And the one thing in your life that you can control is your mindset. So never letting anyone restrict me from getting to where I want to be. You have to approach every single endeavor that you do with a combination of creativity, strategy, and discipline. The experiences that I've gained from pushing boundaries have given me this diverse skill set that has prepared me to navigate complex challenges and gain a unique perspective on the interconnectedness of our society, economy, environment. And to conclude that, beyond my bio, ultimately, I'm a person who is trying to create a positive impact in the world and inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, I love that overview, Max. That's why I said in the intro that I really do feel like you embody the entrepreneurial spirit. You just dropped on us quite a few of those ingredients that are part of an entrepreneur's DNA. And I love how even right there in your first answer, you already went straight to mindset. I think it's something that you and I are probably going to focus on a lot here today. The question that I have for you up front, because I know a lot of people feel this way, and it's funny, you and I both have immigrant stories in our families. And I think that that also shapes so much of how how we view the world, how we view what's possible here in the great United States. And I think that it also impacts our mindset as far as us believing, hey, if I want to do this, I can do this, because our families immigrated to the United States. That's a big leap for them. Where does that mindset come from for you? I know a lot of people convince themselves, oh, how could I run for office for the mayor of Miami? I don't know anything about politics. How could I start and fund a financial literacy company? How could I sell a laundry company? How are all these things? Obviously, you weren't born knowing these things, Max. Walk us through the mindset that got you to the point where you said, hey, I may not know it today, but heck, I'm going to go for it.
Well, risks are a big part of who I am and my identity. They followed me throughout my whole life, and I've always continued to take them because I believed in myself. And the first risk I ever took was what you said about football and winning the Nike Combine. I transferred schools to play football to a place that I knew nobody. And it was my goal to just make it to college football. But when I got there and I started training harder than ever, I ended up breaking Michael Vick's record, which blew my own mind. And after that, when you're number one in the world at something, you're number one at something, you now know what it takes to finally get there, even when no one believed in you or thought you could do it. By chalking my own idea of what I thought was a success, I have continued to take risks after that, because I know it is possible to achieve your craziest dreams if you really do put the work in.
Yeah, I love that advice, especially because we already know what it looks like to not take those risks. Obviously, nothing's going to change. And so it's awesome the fact that you dive in head first. But I think right there, again, so many of your answers reveal your thought process, because right there you talked about wanting to play football. You transferred schools with that end in mind. And to me, that's one of your entrepreneurial superpowers, is your ability to go from idea to actual execution, which, Max, it's those steps in between that confuse most people. Talk to us about how you personally start to strategize and implement things when you have these ideas, because you've worked on big projects. I mean, again, I'm going to keep harping on the mayor of Miami, because I think that's so cool. Someone as young as you who shook up the political scene, coming in second place is an incredible achievement early on in your political career. Talk to us about taking it from that idea to execution and how you strategize the in-between stuff.
Well, there's so many things involved with the mayoral thing. And I think a big thing is 2020 had an impact on everyone. And we all came out of that reflecting about what we wanted to do in our future. And with everything that went on in the United States between George Floyd, COVID, and, all the political divisiveness, I wanted to see, where can I make an impact in this world that's actually a plausible opportunity? And after doing the research, with the thought in mind that your local government is your everyday reality, I did the research and I saw that the incumbent won on 21,000 votes in 2017. So I started to go into my marketing bag and thinking about numbers and deciding, okay, do I think I can get to this number and beat it? Because when you're trying to compete in something, you're only trying to come in first, not second, third, fourth. But to come in second was great. But the way I went about thinking about it was, what can I do to make my city better and on an immediate level? So knowing what I know, I jumped on a campaign in 2020, learned the ins and outs of running a political campaign. And then I took it over 2 weeks later and I handed in my papers to run for City of Miami mayor in 2021. I really had to put it all into action myself, because as a first-time political candidate, no one's going to endorse you. No one's going to believe in you. The only person that believes in you is yourself. And that's the way it is for everything in your life. So I took a huge risk with that. And obviously a lot of people love that, I came runner up and it's like a huge buck to the establishment, but the goal was to come in first. So it's a risk that, unfortunately, it didn't come with the biggest reward, but a lot of people now see that the risk was something that was worth taking, because I really came that close.
Yeah, I love that story because so much of it echoes what is true for all of us in business. And Max, I do want to transition to your businesses because like me, you started your first business very young. You and I were both, while everybody else was partying in college, we were hustling. And for you, you started your first company, a pickup and delivery laundry service. And I think it's so cool because that then became, I always tell people, you never know what these things are going to look like until you have the chance to look in the rearview mirror. And for you, one business has led to another, has led to even more reps. It's something that I talk about so frequently on the show is that the more you do something, the better you get at it. Talk to us about that first company that you started. Where was your head at then? What were the problems that you were facing? And as that evolved, what did you learn about business that set you up for future successes?
That's a really good question. And I like the way you phrased it of how did I get there? I was a junior at Cornell. I was on the football team. I was a government major. But when you have this label of being a great football player and you get to an Ivy League school, all of a sudden you realize, okay, I wasn't recruited here for school. I was recruited here to play football. And after a torn pec, a torn shoulder, and a couple different injuries that were serious, I realized I'm not going to be the best athlete on the team anymore. I'm not going to be so many things. I have to find a way to use my platform as an athlete to somehow make the community a better place. And after interning in private equity after my sophomore year, I came up with this idea of a pickup and delivery laundry service that just didn't exist at the time at Cornell. I called it Maxi Clean. I started on $2,000. I budgeted, I hired employees. Instead of buying washers, I decided, hey, I'm going to rent out the laundromat and come to an agreement with them. This was 2012. So we were taking in orders basically through Google Forms and, just managing the whole business with football was very tough, but I was able to get bought out two months later, which was crazy because it saved me a ton of sleep and it gave me my first job well done in the industry.
Yeah, I love that. I want to hear about what happens from there because a lot of people would just say, whew, okay, I did that. Now it's time to look for a job. I went to a prestigious university. But for you, you knew that you wanted to keep moving and shaking. You never rested on your laurels from there. I know that you had some cross-country moves as well. So walk us through between that, exiting that, graduating college, and then deciding to start up your second company.
Well, when I was graduating from Cornell, I knew I wanted to be in startup world. So I had already planned to move to San Francisco with the money I had. And bear in mind, prices were a lot better back then in terms of San Francisco apartments. But I got to San Francisco. I picked up a mattress that I literally found on the side of the road to be able to afford the apartment that I was staying in. And I got contacted by someone who had been following my work throughout Cornell. And he told me about a financial literacy startup that he was interested in starting. And knowing that I'm a starter, he told me what the deal was with Frugal, which was a financial question and answer database. And way before its time, when you think about 2013 and 2023, like FinLit is a whole tech industry in itself. But he realized that with my energy and that with my tenacity, I would be able to find a way to successfully crowdfund this company. And we were looking for $75,000 to build our initial MVP. And through Cornell and 4 last strong days of really hard work, knocking on San Francisco doors and calling donors from all across the country to give me money for no equity in my company, I got the job done, and we ended up raising over $78,000 in a month. And we ended up winning a few awards after then, like 2014 FinTech Startup of the Year. And you know how startup world goes. Things implode, and it usually happens pretty fast. But it was an experience being in the early stages of San Francisco tech world that really helped me understand like where everything is going.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that I think is really interesting about starting a company is that exactly what you said towards the end there, which is you never know exactly where it's going to go. I think for both you and I, the nature of our early businesses is that people would look at it today and be like, wait, what? Like, can't other people do that? Aren't the barriers to entry lower? Which they are now, but back then there weren't those tools in place. My first business was a soccer blog. Heck, there's a million soccer blogs today, but back in 2008 when I started it, there were so few competitors. It was so much easier. You already called it your marketing bag of tricks. I want to hear about that marketing bag of tricks because that's something that a lot of listeners will be interested in, because I think you just revealed in that last answer quite a bit of hustle. And I think people underestimate hustle as something in that bag of tricks, which is you were picking up the phone, calling people, you were leveraging college contacts that you had made. You were literally hustling to get those things, as opposed to how many businesses think, well, if I list on Indiegogo or if I list on Kickstarter, I'll just get people to give me money. That's not the way that the world works. Max, talk to us about some of those things in the bag of tricks, whether it's within the crowdfunding scope of things or actually acquiring customers for projects that you've worked on or businesses of your own. What are those things that used to work back then that you really leaned on that still work today? Or some of the things that you've seen change over the past, gosh, you've been at this for more than a decade as well. So talk to us about those changes in marketing that you've seen.
Yeah, well, now it has been more than a decade now that I think about it. But it all really started with social media in 2011, 2012. Content blogs got really big. So one of the things we did in terms of our crowdfunding was we wrote content blogs to spread note of not only that we're running a campaign, but information that you would be able to find on Frugal. But when it comes to the marketing bag of tricks, you develop the marketing bag of tricks through experience. And this is what I was saying before about skills translating over, because with MaxiClean and what I did in college, I had to learn how to edit video. I had to learn how to Photoshop. I had to learn all of these different things for growth that helped me learn on the go, that ended up carrying into the later parts of life, in all the way to running for mayor. That Photoshop skill, that video editing skill, all those small skills helped me do a lot of things that I wouldn't have to pay other people to do for me. And by having that bag of skills, it allows you to jump into more industries than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up, Max. I'm not going to lie to you. In over 600 episodes, I don't think we've ever talked about this here on the show. And that is, people don't realize, looking at you and I, if people had a soccer ball around us, we'd be playing soccer, we'd be talking about business. But what they don't realize is you and I are self-taught video editors. You and I are self-taught graphic designers. You and I are self-taught in so many different ways because it's an essential part of the entrepreneurial journey. And it's enabled us to turn around. And not only, you talked about having to not pay other people to do those things, but we can act so fast. When we have an idea, we can go from idea to implementation. I always tell people, really in the same day, you and I could probably start a business in a day if we wanted to, which would make a heck of a boot camp. Talk to us about that fine line, because what I've been told, and I'm sure you've been told this as well throughout your entrepreneurial journey, is that we can hire these things. We can hire these things. And I've always been of the belief that let me first learn it. Let me first get my hands dirty, and then I'll figure out what to hire, what to manage, what to do myself. What are the important parts of the equation where my personality, my energy needs to be present? Talk to us about your mindset there, especially having a diverse portfolio of projects and companies that you're involved in. How do you manage things you take on versus things that you turn to a team for?
I think it really depends on what the business is and what your expertise is and how high of a level of that skill that you possess is needed, because there are some things that you can do, but you probably just can't do them well enough for your product or business to succeed, that it would be better off for you to pay someone to do that and you concentrate on other things. And for example, with my mayoral campaign, like one of the few things that I regret is not giving social media to someone else, even though I know how to do it and everything. It just would have been a lot more off my plate. But when it comes to politics, you always want to be able to control what you're saying, so you don't want anyone to make a mistake on your behalf. So I think having someone that complements your skills well, or having the team in place to complement the skills that you have well, is an extremely important thing to think about when you're starting whatever project, business, or idea it is, because you can't just rely on yourself. You can rely on yourself, but you just can't rely on only yourself. Like, other people have to help you in some sort of way. And a lot of that is letting go of your ego and realizing that you're better at other things. And to make your product or business work, you need to focus on those things.
Yeah, Max, I love the transparency there and hearing something that you do regret about your mayoral campaign. That social media example is one that so many of us confront as entrepreneurs on a daily basis, not just social media, but potential regrets, questions. We don't know the right answers. There is no textbook for entrepreneurship that's going to tell us the right way to do it. If we were in accounting, well, we know how to balance the book. That is black and white. Entrepreneurship isn't, which leads me to ask you this question. I've never asked anyone this question on the podcast, Max, but obviously, more than a decade into it, when you look back at your earlier businesses, at Frugal, at MaxiClean, I love that name for your first company. When you look back at those and you think to yourself, gosh, I am so much older and wiser now. If I ran those companies today, here's what I would have done differently. What are some of those things that you look back on and go, gosh, I missed that opportunity, or gosh, I could have done this so much better. I could have grown so much quicker. What are some of those things?
I mean, I don't have too many regrets when it comes to the actual journey of things, rather than, the actual handling of a certain situation within an endeavor. But if there's something that I would do, it would have been slowed down a little bit, and really get a feel for what it was that I was looking for as a founder. Because with Frugal, I was a recently graduated Cornell kid. Like, the truth is I didn't have the most experience with money at the time. So to be focused on and giving all my energy to something that, yes, I very much cared about because I cared about the idea. I think I was holding on to the idea of it being successful more because it had been validated by a few people up to the moment. But it wasn't something that now in 2023, I couldn't imagine myself ever being happy doing that. And when you chase the moment so fast and you don't really think about what's going on, and you don't think about the future, you really give it your all. So I can't say I regret those types of things, but it's important to slow down and realize like what direction you're going in, and understanding if that direction is the way that you want to move.
Yeah, an important message for all of us. I think taking that time I always say, just breathe and introspect. It's such an important part of the entrepreneurial journey, and it does allow us that chance to reorient our sails. If we're going in the right direction, cool, keep going with the wind. If you're going in the wrong direction, change those sails, which is something that obviously we've all done. Quite frankly, I don't think we talk about it enough within the world of entrepreneurship is how much we all pivot. I've pivoted a lot in my own journey. Max, you've pivoted a lot as well, which I think it's a really good place to talk about that. Obviously, you've gone from laundry to financial literacy to sports in so many different ways to production to politics. How have you navigated those pivots as your career, not only your business career, but really your life career as that has progressed? How do you manage those pivots and decide which direction you want to go in next?
I guess my best answer to that question would be that I always follow my heart. I always follow my heart. And if I'm putting in so much work towards something, I don't even question why I'm doing it. I know that it's for a reason. I know that I'm trying to accomplish something big that not everyone understands. And maybe they don't know, or maybe they do know that I have the skill set and the drive to do it. But approaching everything like people are doubting you is the way that I go towards everything. So when I pivot, the way I've continued to pivot throughout my life, and what I'm very happy with is I continue to get closer to things that I love. And let's just say Miami mayoral election was 2021 and Frugal was 2013. I went from starting a financial literacy startup to running for mayor of the city of Miami at 29. Do those two things line up when it comes to values? What are you trying to do? Help people? Yes. Are you trying to, improve their daily life? Yes. And I think that those are the similarities there, but just in a different industry. You're trying to do it in a different way. And from startup world, I've continued to move closer and closer and closer to sports and people and understanding them and their interconnectedness. And, from going to startup world to private equity world to sports production world to politics, I just feel like I'm getting closer to what I love. And I truly believe that I'm going to be the best in the world one day at something. It just might not exist yet, or I might not know what it is yet.
Yes, I love that mindset. I think right there, that's the one answer that I want every listener to go back and re-listen to, because that right there, I think, is a message that will serve every single entrepreneur and entrepreneur listening, is that one step closer. Look, none of us have made all the perfect steps the first time in our journey, but every step genuinely does take you closer. Even if that step makes you realize, oh shoot, that was the wrong direction. Let me go back in the right direction. Every single step you take is a step closer to where you should be, which we don't need to have that answer. Max, that's what I love about what you just shared with us, is your transparency. You who's done all these different things, you firsthand in front of us here today are saying, I don't know what that path is going to be, but I'm going to keep taking steps until I find it. And I think a good indicator that we're on the right track, you said it right at the beginning of your answer, is that you love doing the work. If you love doing the work and every single day you wake up excited to do it, and you don't care about how many hours you're putting in, what the rewards are on the other side, you are just doing it, you're probably on the right path. So I love that, and I can relate to it so much. Max, as we come towards the end, there's so many different things that we could step into from here that I know listeners would love to hear about from you. Listeners, we're going to drop some links so you can follow Max. He pumps out a lot of awesome content. He does a lot of interviews where he reveals a lot of his mindset, his strategic brain. But before we get there, Max, I want to ask you about this, is that what's something that you think that entrepreneurs, or from your own journey, you've realized, holy cow, I've done this, that normal people, quote unquote, normal people, whatever that may mean, don't understand that we deserve credit for, whether it's the hours we put in, the mindset ups and downs that we face, the obstacles that we get overcome along the way. What are some of those things that, looking at your entrepreneurial journey, you don't think normal people understand enough or praise us or you as entrepreneurs enough when they look at what we're up to?
That is actually a very difficult question to answer, because I think a lot of the lines of certain industries have been blurred by this rapid rise in technology. For example, Zoom wasn't a regular thing, 4 years ago, the same way Instagram wasn't a real thing 15 years ago. And just to give you the broader ideas that things change so quickly. And I think the one thing that you have to give successful entrepreneurs or people that made it far is the number one skill that any entrepreneur can have is the ability to adapt to any circumstances. Adapting is probably my best skill, because adaptation is the way you can literally react to everything. And the way you react to adversity says a lot about the way you overcome challenges. So to be versatile and make sure that all these different moving pieces are together is probably the number one trait that I would say outsiders who don't understand people's ideas or businesses have to at least respect the entrepreneurs and the people pushing out the ideas is for having everything so organized and well thought out.
Yes, absolutely. I love that perspective, Max, because it does look, from the outside world, it looks easy and it looks like the pieces are all falling together naturally. But the reality is, we as entrepreneurs are adaptable enough to say, oh, wait, shoot, that piece, that actually goes here. We're the ones making sense of it in a very chaotic environment, in a chaotic world. So I love that piece of advice there as far as the best skill set. Max, I always love asking guests something tricky and actionable at the end of our session. sessions, and you are a man of action. So you've just shared with us a big trait that you know that all entrepreneurs need. Now I'm going to ask you for an action. So for listeners who are tuning into this, we talked about so many different things today, but what's the one action that every entrepreneur would benefit from doing, whether it's today or this week or this month, depending on how big you make that action is? What's the action that you want listeners to take away from our session today?
Never discard any of your ideas. One of your ideas may be the idea, it may be the thing you end up pursuing, but if you eventually forget about it one day, someone else is going to take it. I think it's really important to understand that ideas, businesses, and every creative obstacle that you're trying to, overcome and then achieve something with is something that you need to be able to control and handle in a way that is methodical and thought out over time. So when you have your ideas and you put them on the computer, you got to create folders. You got to continue to, expound on ideas, because the whole business idea, the whole concept, everything, every single angle of an idea isn't just going to come in one time sitting at the computer. It's a combination of notes from your iPhone, notes from your notebooks, notes from, your laptop, your notes from everywhere. And then you have to combine all these things. And if you gave ideas more time and looked at them longer rather than giving up on them quickly, and gave them time to marinate and come up with more avenues and ideas towards this one bigger idea, I think a lot more people would feel stronger about taking the risk of becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, Max, I'll tell you what, that is unique advice. We've never heard a guest come on and have that be their actionable piece of advice, but I think it's so powerful. And I actually think it's two-pronged. Is one, don't discard all of your ideas, but two, it really reveals one of your inner secrets, which is jot down all of your ideas. Let them simmer. It's just like if we wanted to plant a tree, you don't just throw a seed out there and just say, okay, I hope it grows. You water it, you give it sunshine, you check on it, you make sure that it has what it needs to grow. So I love that idea of jotting down those ideas and then actually revisiting them, simmering on them, thinking about them, contemplating them, and then putting the right ones into action, because those ideas are only going to grow over time if given sunshine and water. So really good advice there, Max. I know that listeners, I've obviously teased the fact that you're always putting out awesome stuff. I personally love your website. As I was doing research for today's session, there's so much good information and stories and perspectives on your website. So tell listeners from here where the heck they should go to learn more about you, your work, all the awesome things that you're up to.
Well, I appreciate the compliment and thanks. It was a lot of hard work to get all that stuff onto one page. But if you want to follow me on social, on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, I'm Max Martinez with a 1 instead of an I. Remember that, one and only. And, on Twitter, I'm just Max Martinez, but I'm really going to start posting a lot more on YouTube now and giving people ideas and showing them processes I went through to achieve certain goals. It's something that I'm actually working on right now. So if there were ever a time to follow, I would say it's right now. But yeah, Max Martinez with a 1 instead of an I.com as well. That's where you can find me, and you can always feel free to reach out. I'm usually pretty good with DMs. Just feel free to reach out and follow, and I'm glad to return the favor.
Heck yes, we so appreciate that, Max. Listeners, you know the drill. All the links that Max just dropped right there, including his own website, maxmartinez.com with a 1 instead of the I. So it's maxmartinez.com. Definitely hit that link down below wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You can also find him on all the socials. Max already revealed to us it's him behind his socials, so you will reach out to him. He loves talking about business, ideas, turning them into reality. He's involved in so many different things, honestly, from a production standpoint, from a business standpoint. Check out his work, reach out to him. Otherwise, personally, Max, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.
I appreciate you for having me, Brian.